Dark Magician. The OG, the first ace, the immortal protector and friend of Atem during his reign on the throne. There really isn't a more iconic monster in the game than the Dark Magician. And a little while back during Konami's huge wave of legacy support, the Ultimate Wizard finally got the support needed to make a deck around him. And oh boy, is it an interesting one. Like the two deck dossiers before it, this one focuses on an archetype with a unique gimmick. This one being to spam a level 7 vanilla onto the field while banishing as much as your opponent's stuff as possible, all on their turn. While the deck can brick bad enough to put monarchs to shame, it is an interesting concept that, when working, works really well. So, like always, let's break this bad boy down and have a gander at what makes this deck tick. In this video, we'll run through how the deck works, covering its strengths and weaknesses, as well as discussing some tech choices and analysing the nuances of deck building that have gone in to making it the deck that it ended up becoming. Following all of that, we will then go over some replays designed to showcase the deck's playstyle and abilities, while also showing how it can work and react in a number of different situations. Now, I've realised that Dark Magicians are a fan favourite for many within the Yu-Gi-Oh community, for obvious reasons, and I won't pretend for 1 second that I know the deck perfectly, but I hope, just like the previous two deck dossiers, that this one will provide a comprehensive guide to the deck for those looking to pick it up, and that I won't miss out any major cards, unlike last time. And so we get to our first card in the deck, the one that the entire thing is focused around, the monster we all know, the Dark Magician. One that, funnily enough, is actually the first normal monster to be covered in the series. While 2500 attack for a level 7 isn't that impressive on its own, this deck entirely revolves around getting this guy out. Magician Navigation and Eternal Soul get this guy onto the field easily, and along with a bunch of other cards that help search or summon him, form the core of the deck. However, the reason this is important is because of a little card called Dark Magical Circle, a continuous spell that we will cover shortly that is really the MVP of the deck. Because of all this interaction, running 3 of the Dark Magician is an absolute must. Next up on the monster list is Magician of Dark Illusion, a level 7 with Dark Magician's stats in reverse. His effect is that he is treated as Dark Magician while it's on the field, and that he has 2 other effects that can only be used once per turn. The first is that during the opponent's turn, if you activate a spell or trap card or effect, except during the damage step, you can special summon him from the hand. Then, if you activate a spell card or trap card or an effect while it's face up on the field, you can target 1 Dark Magician in your graveyard and special summon it. His special summon effect is really nice as it triggers off of any spell or trap card you activate, not just a Dark Magician focused one. The second effect I found myself really using, but the recursion is quite good to have it to trigger off of quick play spells such as Dark Magic Expanded. Beyond that, it works really nicely as rank 7 fodder and a 2500 body in a pinch, and it's a good Allure of Darkness target as it's honestly the least useful monster in the deck, which says a lot about the quality of the synergy between the cards. I run 2, as 3 has been a little cloggy in the playtesting I've done. The next monster was hailed as the deck saviour on announcement, coming out a few months after the major support for Dark Magician had already come through. While she's not the Dark Magician girl, she's the closest thing to her, and that is of course, Apprentice Illusion Magician. Her effect is that you can special summon her from the hand by discarding a card, and then, if normal or special summoned by any means, you can add 1 Dark Magician card from the deck to the hand. Also, during damage calculation in either player's turn, if another Dark Spellcaster monster battles, you can send this card from your hand or face up from your field to the graveyard, and that monster gains 2000 attack and defense during that damage calculation. They really knew what they were doing with this one. Field presence, Dark Magician searching, and a built-in honest effect for all Dark Spellcasters. The discard cost will either be Dark Magician or Magician of Dark Illusion, and this cost can be immediately negated by the plethora of revival cards available to the deck. Run 3 unless you love bricky hands, in which case, just play Monarchs. And now we come to the spell and trap searcher for the deck, Magician's Rod. Insert your joke about his massive rod here. He's considered the play starter for the deck, and here's why. When this card is normal summoned, you can add one spell trap card from your deck to your hand that specifically lists the card Dark Magician in its text. During your opponent's turn, if you activate a spell or trap card or effect while this card's in the graveyard, you can tribute a spellcaster type monster to add this card to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. Like I said, he's your play starter, and starting with him is absolutely vital for the deck strategy. He can search whatever spell or trap card you're missing when summoned, whether that's Circle, Navigation or Eternal Soul, and he can even search the likes of Illusion Magic to get more Dark Magicians if you've already got the rest of the spells and traps ready to go. An interesting situation arises when you get two of them in play at once, one in the grave and one on the field. For example, if the one on the field is summoned via Navigation, then it can be tributed to add the Graveyard Rod back to your hand for another normal summon and search on the next turn, often allowing for the loop to be repeated. While not exactly game breaking by any stretch of the imagination, it really does aid with the consistency of the deck, as it's really the only monster that gets normal summoned during the duel. I know you're probably getting tired of hearing it at this point, but running 3 is once again imperative. Getting it turn 1 is oh so important, and the searching power for a spell and trap focused deck is second to none. And surprisingly, that's basically it already for the monsters. I do also run 3 Ash Blossom, and here's where I would say to run a copy of Maxi, but thankfully since I'm lazy and took a while putting this deck dossier together, I hadn't recorded and edited before the February 5th ban list dropped. So, don't run a Maxi in the deck, because you can't. And now we get to the spell and traps of the deck. Most of these I've mentioned already, including the first one in Allure of Darkness. Taken off the ban list during last year, its effect is that you can draw 2 cards, then banish 1 dark monster from your hand, or, if you don't have any in your hand, send your entire hand to the graveyard. This is one of 2 major draw engines that the deck can run. While this deck doesn't really want to banish its own monsters, a copy of Magician of Dark Illusion or Magician's Rod is okay. Even Apprentice Illusion can work in a pinch. No deck can really say no to an extra 2 draws though, so this card is absolutely viable and one that I run at 3, and I'll also cover the other draw engine in the tech choices section. Another spell that is a large part of the Dark Magician playstyle is Eye of Timaeus. Its effect is that you can target 1 Dark Magician monster you control, fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck that lists that monster on the field as fusion material, using it as the fusion material. You can only activate 1 of this card per turn. This is a pretty simple one. It lets you summon out the Dark Magician fusions, i.e. the Dragon Knight, Dark Paladin and Amulet Dragon, without needing to run the secondary materials needed for the fusion summon of the card. However, the card cannot be searched by the archetype. I cannot stress this enough. While there are cards that can do that, I really wouldn't recommend running them in the deck, and that is why, therefore, run 3 of this to give you the best chance of drawing it. You know when you see a word so often it starts to lose all meaning and looks like it's been spelled incorrectly? Yeah, 3 is a weird word. Anyway, the next 2 spells are thankfully ran at 1 copy each thanks to being searchable off of Eternal Soul. Those 2 spells are Dark Magic Attack and Thousand Knives. Dark Magic Attack allows you to destroy all spell and trap cards your opponent controls if you control a Dark Magician. And in the same vein, Thousand Knives allows you to target 1 monster your opponent controls and destroy it if you have a Dark Magician on the field. While the deck revolves around banishing removal, these 2 are good to run as one-ofs as searchable outs to cards if you either don't have Dark Magical Circle on the field or cannot summon another Dark Magician. There's not really much to say about these 2 honestly. One provides spot monster removal, the other is an archetypal heavy storm. Run 1 of each if you run them. Now in case you haven't caught on yet, the main idea behind the Dark Magician playstyle is that most of their plays are done on the opponent's turn through the activation of quick play spells and traps. Therefore, Pot of Duality is definitely a viable card in the deck. For those who don't know, its effect is that you can excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, then add 1 of them to your hand, also after that, shuffle the rest back into the deck. You can only activate 1 of these per turn, and you cannot special summon during the turn you activate this card. This card really helps in getting the spells and traps you need into your hand in order to start your plays. If activated after Dark Magical Circle, then the cards that card revealed can then be placed back on top in order for you to choose one to add to your hand with this spell. For a deck that doesn't mind it much in giving up its special summoning for a turn, it's a perfect fit. I personally run 2, but it can be run at 3 if you wish, although that does make the card a little cloggy. Dark Magic Expanded is another quick play spell that the deck runs, and oh boy does it have a long effect. Alright, here goes. Apply these effects in sequence, based on the number of Dark Magician and or Dark Magician Girl you control or in the graveyard. 1+. One Dark Spellcaster type monster on the field gains 1000 attack until the end of the turn. 2+. This turn, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to your spell, trap card, or effect activation. Also, spell, trap cards you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. 3+. Dark Spellcaster type monsters you currently control are unaffected by your opponent's card effects until the end of this turn. The stat boost is actually really useful as a quick play spell, and 3500 attack or potentially 4000 on the Dragon Knight is nothing to sneeze at. The 2+ and 3+ effects are quite useful if you're just beginning to start your plays, or are trying to protect your magicians. But in all honesty, the 3+ is rendered pretty much useless as Eternal Soul is a card. While this card in a vacuum does nothing to further your own game state, it does allow you to further it afterward uninterrupted. Therefore, I run 2 of this spell. The next spell is an interesting one-off in the deck, that being Dark Magic Inheritance. While the cost does seem steep, it actually works really well with the deck. This quick play has you banish 2 spell cards from your graveyard, add 1 spell/trap card from your deck to your hand that specifically lists the card Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl in its text, except itself. You can only activate one of these per turn. What this card does is essentially give you another way to search the major spells and traps you want on the field. The only reason I don't run a higher amount in the deck is because it does require those 2 spells in the grave to be banished. While this is quite easy to do, doing it more than once is not only costly, it also shouldn't even be necessary. Running 1 is what I do, but it is possible to run 2 if you believe you can afford the cost. The last one-off archetypal spell is yet another quick play, Illusion Magic. This card allows you to tribute 1 spellcaster type monster to add 2 copies of Dark Magician from your deck or graveyard to your hand, and once again, it can only be activated once per turn. The standard play is to summon Magician's Rod, search the last spell trap you need, then set them all before activating this, getting the rod off the field and 2 Dark Magicians into your hand to summon them on the next turn. It's a simple yet effective combo, and it being searchable off of Rod itself means it's only really needed at 1, so run 1. Next is Monster Reborn. Remember how Max C came out of the deck because of the ban list? This goes in because you can run it at 1 now. A free Dark Magician to trigger the magical circle is always good, and I mean it's freaking Monster Reborn, just run the damn thing! And yes, that's all I have to say about Monster Reborn going to 1 without Narada. Shit's good, run it wherever you can. And so, we come to the final spell of the deck. The reason I left this to last is because I wanted to go through and show how it interacted with the deck before discussing the card itself. And the same goes to the 2 traps to follow it. And so, we say hello to Dark Magical Circle. The circle that seems to appear on every goddamn Dark Magician card in one form or another. Its effect is as follows. When this card is activated, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, then reveal 1 Dark Magician or 1 spell trap card that specifically lists the card Dark Magician among them and add it to your hand. Also place the remaining cards on top of your deck in any order. If Dark Magician is normal or special summoned to your field except during the damage step, you can target 1 card your opponent controls and banish it. You can only use each effect once per turn. I'm not sure what I can say about the card that hasn't been said already if I'm honest. It searches your other spells and traps, it banishes a card once per turn during either turn if a Dark Magician is summoned, and it aids in generating field advantage while also setting your deck up for Prodigy Alley, or just deck thing in general. Running 3 is really non-negotiable as this card, along with Dark Magician and Eternal Soul, are the heart of this deck. And now we come to the final 3 cards in the deck, the traps, the first of which is Magician Navigation. Its effect allows you to special summon 1 Dark Magician from your hand, then special summon 1 level 7 or lower Dark Spellcaster type monster from your deck. If you control Dark Magician, except during the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish it to target 1 face-up spell trap card your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn. The summon effect is fantastic, as summoning Apprentice Illusion off this nets you another Dark Magician in hand, although there are a couple tech options this card can summon that I'll get into later. Additionally, the negation effect has come in handy on multiple occasions, often preventing an opponent from starting a comeback via the likes of Regeki if you don't have Eternal Soul active, Soul Charge, or even just allowing you to negate a searcher such as Terraforming. Run at 3, as it synergizes too well with the deck to run any less than that amount. Then you have the Solemn Brigade. I currently run 2 strikes in the deck, but with Judgment coming off the list, it's worth playing around with a combination of these 3 cards to find what best works for you. Like I said, I currently run 2 strikes, but I feel as though it might change in the future. It's up to you really. And finally, we come to the last card in the main deck, Eternal Soul. A continuous trap that lives up to the name. Its effect is as follows. Every Dark Magician in your monster zone is unaffected by your opponent's card effects. If this face-up card leaves the field, destroy all monsters you control. You can only use the following effect of Eternal Soul once per turn. You can activate one of these effects. Special summon 1 Dark Magician from your hand or graveyard, or add 1 Dark Magic attack or Thousand Knives from your deck to your hand. Not only does Eternal Soul provide one of the best archetypal protection effects in the game, but the Search/Summon effect helps form a cornerstone of the Dark Magician strategy. With the Dragon Knight being treated as Dark Magician on the field, it creates a soft lock between the two, where the only out the opponent really has is to run over the fusion, which can then just be resummoned off the trap's effect. It's the last time I'll say it this video, thank God, but run 3. You want to see this card as much as you can, and having 1 extra in hand is never a downside, as it can serve as a viable backup in case the first is destroyed. A wonderful card that I cannot recommend enough. And that brings us to the extra deck, and we're going to jump straight into it with one of the deck's powerhouses, Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight. With a Blue Eyes stat line, its effect is that this card's name becomes Dark Magician while on the field and in the graveyard. Your opponent cannot target spell traps you control with card effects, also they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Summonable off of Timaeus, the protection effect is exactly what the deck needed. Having this out, as I said, creates a soft lock that I mentioned earlier, and getting him out with Eternal Soul puts you in a very advantageous position. I run 2 in case I lose the first somehow, but it can be dropped to 1. The only other fusions I run are there for the toolbox factor, that being Dark Paladin and Amulet Dragon. Both use Timaeus to be summoned, but can be useful in certain situations. Amulet Dragon is good for getting over beaters considering how many spells the deck uses, and it does revive a Dark Magician when destroyed, which can trigger your Dark Magical Circle. Dark Paladin is a bit more of a tech choice, but it can be useful against dragon focused decks such as, go figure, Blue Eyes. The spell negation is good against many decks these days actually, especially Pendulums, and the discard cost isn't overly heavy for this deck. I run 1 of each, although I rarely go into them. Among the rest of the extra deck, there's only 1 real staple in it since the deck is not really focused on it, and that is Ebon Illusion Magician. Requiring 2 level 7 monsters, it can also be Xyz summoned by using a rank 6 spellcaster type Xyz monster you control as material. Once per turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, special summon 1 spellcaster type normal monster from your hand or deck. When a spellcaster type normal monster declares an attack, you can target 1 card your opponent controls, banish it. You can only use this effect once per turn. Its summon effect allows you to replenish the attack damage you lost from summoning him right off the bat, and the banishment effect is fantastic since, when coupled with an already active Dark Magical Circle, can result in 5k damage on board just thanks to him, as well as banishing 2 of your opponent's cards. I run 2 just in case there's a long grind game, but once again it can be dropped to 1 if you wish. Beyond that, The world is your oyster, and I realise I've said this in all 3 deck dossiers so far, but it's the truth. So, just like the other times, I'll go through a quick rundown of what I personally run, and then I'll cover some others shortly amongst the tech choices for the deck. And as always, if you want to read the full effects, just pause the video where necessary. Red Eye's Flare Metal is always a good card in decks that can summon him for the burn effect, and Master of Blades can be useful for getting around monster targeting effects if you have just him out, although he is a bit situational. Draco Sack also works well for some first turn protection and has a nice destruction effect. And Big Eye is always good at 1 because stealing your opponent's monsters is almost always useful. Ebon High Magician allows you to protect your spells and traps from destruction by being able to activate them from the hand. And the floating effect, along with the destruction of a single card when sent to the graveyard, allows for some really good disruption. Utopia Beyond is also always useful for OTKs and decks that can summon him. And Naruto, no, not Naruto, gives some great negation if you get 2 Apprentice Illusion Magicians out at once. Dragulus the Vampiric Dragon is an interesting card that I run at 1 in the deck. Summonable in the same way as Naruto, it can flip itself face down and then send a card to the grave when flipped face up for some non-destruction, non-targeting removal. Additionally, although the deck rarely has more than 1 extra deck monster out at a time, I run a copy of Decode Talker as well, although this can be replaced by any Link 2 or 3 monster with a couple of down arrows, depending on what you run. And that's it for the extra deck, so now we move on to tech choices, where we cover some of the more popular tech choices that the deck has. For Dark Magicians, there is quite a large pool of cards to choose from, so for the purpose of this video we will just focus on the ones that can be seamlessly teched into the deck as side deck options. And I know she's been absent from the video so far, but the first tech choice is Dark Magician Girl, whose inclusion can allow the deck to make use of removal options such as Dark Burning Magic. Having this spell and a live Magician Navigation set can result in being able to destroy your opponent's entire field on a whim, which can be extremely powerful against decks that don't float or don't have much protection. Palladium Oracle Mahad allows for a quick 2500 beta at the start of your turn, and he also gets a Dark Magician from anywhere if destroyed, which can also trigger Circle. Elemental Hero Prisma can be used as a substitute for Dark Magician, plus sending 1 to the grave helps synergize with Eternal Soul's revival effect. This card, plus Chocolate Magician Girl and Summoner Monk can not only aid with the deck's consistency when you have the right ratios, but it also gives access to the rank 4 pool, with cards like Number 101 and Castell still being useful removal options today. Night End Sorcerer is also a rather spicy tech in this deck. Summonable off of Navigation, its effect works well with the Dark Magician playstyle, and being a tuner gives the deck access to level 9 synchros such as Azure Eyes Silver Dragon, who can actually revive a Dark Magician with its effect. And if you don't want to use Allure of Darkness as draw power, then have a look at the Spellbook engine along with Wonder Wand, which is the other draw engine I was talking about earlier. This can help you with that draw power and consistency as well as deck thinning, which can be useful if you're trying to draw into key cards such as Timaeus which aren't searchable. There is also some generic spellcaster support that works well with the deck, such as Magical Dimension and Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Magical Dimension allows you to summon out higher level monsters easily while also providing monster removal, and the field spell gives you the ability to stop your opponent from using spells entirely, which is very powerful. Finally, Black Illusion can give you battle and effect protection at the cost of your monster effects, which is good for stalling over for another turn as the monster effects aren't really the powerhouses of this deck. Skill Drain also accomplishes a similar thing, and completely locking your opponent out of their effects can be very powerful once again. Dark Renewal also allows you to interrupt your opponent's plays when they perform a summon. And not only that, it can clear a Magician's Rod off of the field as well as trigger Circle with its effect. This can also be useful as a replacement for Magician Navigation, as it doesn't require you to have a spellcaster in your hand in order to activate it, which means that in the case in which you don't draw into a Dark Magician, you can still get off the effects that you need to. Tacking on to the end is a very recent reveal in Keeper of Draconic Magic, a new level 4 Dark Dragon monster. As someone on the subreddit said, having a Summoner Monk and a Dark Magician in hand can lead to this being summoned and the Dragon Knight fusion being brought out thanks to him. It does need some playtesting though, and I'll leave a link to the relevant subreddit thread in the description if you want to read up on the card. And that's it. With the majority of the more popular cards the deck can run being covered, this brings us to the final section of the video, the replays, where we have a look at the deck in action and break down how it approaches certain situations. So as always, take it away, me. Thank you, me. We are going to hop straight into the first replay, guys. This time we've got 2 replays. I realise that's now 4, 3, then 2. But this one and the next one are quite long. So I figured instead of, breaking it down into multiple ones, we just focus on these 2 and go from there. So in this one, we're facing off against dragons. And we're going to be starting off here in the first turn. So again, the process here is we've got to think, okay, what don't we have in our starting hand? We have a Dark Magician, we have Itemized, which is fantastic, but what we don't have is a Dark Magical Circle or a way to summon a Dark Magician to the field, which is like a Magician's Navigation or an Eternal Soul. So we search Dark Magical Circle, that is then able to, that is then able to search one of the ones from the top 3 cards. This time it was the Eternal Soul, which is lucky, we got that. And the Solemn Struck as well for a bit of negation, which is good. Although, given the new ban list, I'll probably switch that out for a Judgment. As you can see there, he's playing the Max C, so this was recorded before the ban list dropped. So here, we flip over the Eternal Soul, because we're thinking, okay, we don't really know what form of Dragon deck we're going up against. All we know is that Blue Eyes is involved somehow. So if we banish that, if we destroy, if we banish that face down card, then he's not able to get anything from it, and we've got a clear path forward. So we go into the next one. We draw the Ash Blossom, it's always nice. We can fuck the Max C just as hard as the ban list did. And then I did that just because I could, I guess. I knew there was the other one there to use, but again, here we go into the Itemized. This is so important, guys. If you can go into the Itemized, if you can go into Dark Magician Dragon Knight, absolutely 100% go into it. You have no reason not to, as it protects your back row from pretty much anything. But here again, we get to summon Dark Magician back, which is really useful. And we get to attack for a bunch, which is also fantastic. And with the Apprentice Illusion Magician in hand as well, that is very useful. So the Archblade Dragon is going to trigger again, summon Goliath. But, as you can see here, just attack straight into the hand trap. That's why you run 3 of the Apprentice Illusion Magician, because even if you don't summon her, she's still that useful. So, as you can see here, we do have 3 replays. This one here, I want to save. That name, Insect King, might be a bit of a clue as to what the guy was playing, but I might do that as a separate video, because that is a whole kettle of fish in and of itself. So let's load into the next replay here. Once again, he's playing dragons. Bit of a different build, but this really shows off what Dark Magician is capable of and how it can process through different plays. So again, what we see here, before we go into our turn, we know that he's discarded the Archblade Dragon, and we know he's got the Felgrand in the grave. So we know he's going to be doing that play this turn. So we've got to figure out, okay, what can we do in order to sort of work with that, playing around it, and go from there, just as you would with any duel. So again, starting hand, we go, okay, we've got the Magical Circle, we've got Magician's Navigation, what don't we have? A Dark Magician. That's why I searched the Illusion Magic, because you can tribute Magician's Rod to get 2 Dark Magicians to hand, which you can summon with either Apprentice Illusion, search with Apprentice Illusion, summon with Magician's Navigation, do all that sort of stuff. Again, here, we get lucky with the Dark Magical Circle, and we get the Eternal Soul. Very lucky with those ones. Quite often, you'd be surprised how often there's a target on the top 3, especially if you're playing a lot of spell traps like I tend to do. And it works out pretty well. So again, here, we go to the Illusion Magician. We can discard the Dark Magician here because we have the Eternal Soul set. Because Eternal Soul can summon from the graveyard, it actually means that this cost is negligible. You get a free monster on board just so you got a bit of protection come the next turn, and you get another search as well. So we've got 3 Dark Magicians to play with now. And again, the Itemized is ready to go next turn. Unfortunately, we couldn't summon out Dark Magician this turn, but that's neither here nor there. Again, we don't want him doing stuff with Dragon Ravine, so we Ash Blossom that. And he has his field set up now, but we have Magician's Navigation. So that's alright. So here, what I do is we've already got the banishment here, but the reason I tribute the Dark Magician to get Magician's Rod back is because I know I can't be OTK'd. I know that there is no way he'll be able to attack through my field and go for game. So I do this in order to get another spell and trap into my hand. It does cost a little bit of life points. Well, it does, you know, summon the Archblade Dragon back, and we do have that happen with the Dark Magical Circle, but it means we've got a follow-up play, whereas before we would just attacked over Dark Magician, my stuff would have been banished anyway, so it wouldn't have been useful. So again here, because we saw that play coming with Archbrave Dragon, we were able to go ahead and get the Magician's Rod back in order to just get another magical circle, making the whole point pretty negligible at the cost of some life points. So again here, going into Dark Magician Dragon Knight, absolutely imperative. And then using Dark Magical Circle's effect, we can banish the Felground, get that out of the way, summon another Dark Magician back, get more points on board. The reason I don't attack the main Eyes of Blue is because of its trigger effect. I don't want that to happen. But we also managed to get rid of Return of the Dragon Lords, which is fantastic. For anyone who's played against these guys, you know it's a good thing. But here he makes a mistake, goes into Scarlight. I don't know why he didn't think, why they thought that was going to work. I'm assuming Call of Horner's involved or maybe something like that. But we just get rid of that. You know, just get it out of the way. Don't even bother with it. And so here we don't have any Dark Magicians we can search. So basically we go into Dark Magic Attack because we want to get rid of his back row. We don't want to have to deal with that. Unfortunately, because Archbrave Dragon triggers, this happens. Now, this is the one problem with Dark Magician Dragon Knight. It does not protect from banishing. That is something you have to bear in mind when playing Dark Magicians. It's a fantastic card, don't get me wrong, but you have to notice that. Fortunately, we don't get taken and hit for the OTK here. It's not really an OTK because we're at 54 anyway. But again, all this does is just showcase the comeback ability of Dark Magicians. Because here we got the Eternal Soul out, which is fine. Again, Ash Blossom coming in, MVP. We can Eternal Soul back into Dark Magician Dragon Knight for mutual destruction. And we can just summon him back on the next turn. Which I cannot thank enough. Again, here. Eternal Soul can just summon back Dragon Knight easily enough. But I cannot thank enough, Konami. Thank you for making Dark Magician Dragon Knight count as Dark Magician while in the field or in the graveyard. Fantastic decision. You just didn't make the deck, so to speak, there, but again, Magician's Rod into Magical Circle, into that, etc, etc, etc. That's how the Dark Magician playstyle works. Motherfucker then drops a Battle Fader on us, wherever that came from, and then here, again, we're showing off all the toys in this replay. Magician's Navigation allows you to banish, to negate a face-up spell and trap, including one that's just activated. So your opponent plays Return the Dragon Lords, Soul Charge, Monster Reborn, a quick play spell, you know, a trap, anything like that. They will all be able to be negated. So if you know what your opponent's main players are in terms of their spell and trap lineup, Magician's Navigation will always, always, always come in clutch here. And again, we can just summon another Dark Magician from the hand or graveyard, banish something with Dark Magical Circle, and we get the trigger off. So this is what I was saying with the Magician's Rod. If you get that cycle going like that, because again, Eternal Soul can summon from the graveyard. So if you get the cycle going Magician's Rods, you get a new spell and trap card every turn on top of your draw, which is absolutely fantastic. But again, that's the replay. Because again, here he just sort of went, well, I can't summon anything. My monsters are gone. You know, that's how Dark Magician works. It's just constantly banishing, destroying, negating, and just constantly just returning Dark Magician to the field and just wears your opponent down. So that's going to be the two replays, guys. I hope you enjoyed them, and now I shall send you back to myself and we shall wrap up this video. And that'll bring this video to an end, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. Here's a deck list, as you guys have been asking for these. And if you did enjoy the video, please remember to leave a like on it. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and look forward to more of these in the future coming from myself. I am starting uni around the time that this video is coming out. I do aim to release one of these each month, but we'll see how we go. So until next time, guys, this has been the Sage as always, signing out.